time. So I suggest you to do it on weekend. Okay, I suggest you to do it on weekend. Then go to features enable disable, right? So Windows features enable disable. So you can say turn on, yeah, turn on features, right? Turn Windows features on now. So there is one option called WSL Windows Services for Linux. Check that option. Windows subsystem for Linux or Windows subsystem for Linux, and enable virtual machine platform. So enable both virtual machine platform and Windows subsystem for Linux. Check these two check boxes. Click OK. It will take some time to uh, get the changes reflected. It asks for restart. Don't do it now. Okay. If you do it now, you will be restarted right away. So you do it after that. So you enable your WSL 2.2 on your computer. Then you can install you now Linux version, right? So Linux version on Windows computers. Go to Microsoft Store. Microsoft Store. Type for Ubuntu. It opens. After all these changes, my system become dead slow. I need to format it actually. My C drive become full now. So just type Ubuntu. Okay, just type Ubuntu and go for latest version 20.0.4, right? 20.4 LTS. Actually, I already installed Ubuntu on my machine. That's why I'm getting launched. But for you, it like download and install. So it will take some time to download and install this Ubuntu OS. So this is what I installed already. So it is just a matter of click getting into the Linux. Right? You no need to install any virtual box, only any VMware not required. So Windows latest version, right? Windows latest version. So you can, it is just a matter of click. Right now I am on Linux. So you can execute Linux commands very happily. ls-lrt, present working directory, right? So who am I? So these commands, which I mean, it's a single command, I believe. Okay, so right, so these are like just like our Linux commands. So right now I am into Ubuntu OS and see what is the memory and what is the CPU utilization for this. So go to taskbar and see how much memory is being used by Linux library. Here is my Windows, right? So here is my Ubuntu. How much CPU it's being used now? And what is the memory? See the memory section, right? See the memory. How much memory my Ubuntu is consuming right now? 8.4 MB. Do you really think with that much less memory you can install Linux software on your Windows? No, right? Yes, but it is possible when you enable WSL 2.0. Okay, so there are like nice videos are made and available on YouTube. Just go and follow that and try to install this and start doing executing some of the Linux commands, right? Some of the Linux commands. Yes. So it's going to be installed on my Windows networking tab, networking. So this is going to be available here, and it's pretty lightweight, and it's going to be pretty fast. Okay. So here is the place where is that Linux is going to be installed, and it's going to be pretty much fast, and it's going to be pretty much lightweight. So you can quickly install Linux Ubuntu on your Windows system, and you can start using it. But okay, so actually, why we are doing all of this sudden? Because today we are going to install Docker on Windows. Here you, right? So install Docker. So how can we install Docker on Windows? Go to Google, type, okay, first of all, let me show you what are all the videos you want to follow. But Docker, Windows, I mean, Docker and Linux, Windows with WSL2 needs minimum version of, what is the minimum version you needed? OS build you needed? 2004. So right now I'm on 909, right? So 1909. So I'm not able to get it done, and my OS, I mean, already my C drive is full. I have to format it and I have to do reinstall. So I cannot do it in, like, yeah, I tried it, but it's not working. Okay, I tried this one, but I'm not able to do it because if I'm trying to do that, I'm going out of space issue for this C drive. I need to format and reinstall the OS. So I don't think so. I can do it now. So, but you guys can try it out. Okay, you just update your Windows, right? You just update your Windows to latest version like 2004 and install WSL2. Okay, WSL2. Now let's go to Google and install Docker. Let's go to Google and say Docker desktop. You just say Docker desktop. You just enter Docker desktop and go to Docker desktop. So there are versions are available, Docker for Mac and Docker for Windows. So you just click on stable. I already downloaded. You just click on stable. It will be downloaded. I am going to cancel it because I already downloaded. It is just excuse me. It is just a simple .exe file. You just do a couple of double clicks. The Docker is going to be installed on your machine, right? So Docker is going to be installed on your machine. So once it is done, here is the Docker image. Okay, once it is done, here is the Docker image. So so it will be started as soon as it is installed. So go to settings, and if you have Windows version 2004, there is one option is going to be enabled automatically. So yeah, go to YouTube. You have to follow two videos for this. Okay, one is to enable install Linux library. One is to install Linux library for this one. So you just search in the Google saying that WSL2, WSL Windows 10. So here is the one which I follow to install Linux, and here is the one which we need to follow for Docker installation with Docker with WSL and Linux. Okay, so these two recordings you go through and you install the Linux on the Windows system, and you install the Docker and link it with the um, with the Linux, which is we already installed. So I'm using the old version of Windows. I'm not able to update it, unfortunately. But if you have the latest version of Windows, which is like 2004, this box will be enabled. You check this box and to apply and restart your computer. So you can operate your Docker from the Ubuntu which you installed. So you feel like you are learning you are operating the Docker on the Linux operating system. So no VMware required, nothing. It's going to be pretty lightweight, pretty much lightweight, and it's going to be pretty much fast. So that's how you are going to install the Docker and play from Linux, right? You are going to play with the Linux, but still you are going to use Windows system alone, right? You are going to use Windows, and you no need to install any VMware. Nothing is required. So the things are going to be pretty much fast, and you feel like you are directly working on the Linux operating system. Okay. So I'm trying to show that part, but I'm not able to do it. I am already out of space. Okay, I'm already out of space, so I'm not able to link this Docker with right. I'm not able to link this right. I'm not able to link this with Docker. I'm not able to link this Docker with my Linux, which is running on my local, but still I'm able to run Linux separately. So I will try. Maybe I will try today or maybe tomorrow. I need some time to format this and reinstall all the libraries. So once I format all my databases, everything will go away, right? So MySQL, everything will go away. So it will take some time to reinstall all the software. So that's why I didn't do that. Okay. Yes. But you guys can try. So try to run Docker from Windows through Ubuntu. Okay. Yes. But I'm not able to do it, but still I can run Docker from my Git bash or from my PowerShell. Okay, from my direct, I can directly run it from PowerShell, or I can directly run it from Git bash. Okay, so let's go to Git bash and see how can we access the Docker. So where it is, you go to Git cloud config server.git and right click and git bash here. So I will try to execute docker -v. So as soon as you install Docker desktop, you can able to see the output for this, right? So Docker is installed on my machine. I can run any one of the Docker commands. So for example, Docker run hello world. So that is just a kind of demo, like testing whether the Docker is properly installed or not. You can just say hello -world. So if you get some output printed on the console, yeah, that image is not there on my local machine. It will download that image and it will run that image, right? So you see some message printed on the console saying that hello world. What is it? Try to say some use Ubuntu container with Docker ID. Yeah, it is asking to run with hello world with the Ubuntu. Yes, but it's fine. I already installed, right? So that yeah, hello from Docker. It's successfully run, but it is suggesting to use WSL, right? It is suggesting to use WSL from Ubuntu. But anyway, I'm not able to do it, but you can try from your end. Okay, so but Docker is running on my Windows directly, right? So Docker is running, still Docker is running on my Windows directly. So why all of a sudden we are coming into Docker? Uh, what we discussed in the last session, do you guys remember? Sorry, 2 days, 1 day break came, right? So I think you might have. What we discussed?
Spring Cloud configuration.
Right? Cloud config server. Yes. So do we fully address the issue? What is the issue actually why we came here? Centralized config. But do we fully provided the solution for centralized config? No, right? So for example, where we left exactly. So if you have service 1 instance, service 2 instance, right? Service 1 instance 1, right? So this is my instance 1, and so this is my instance 2, and this is my instance 3. Okay, so all these three are pointing to a single config server. So if I change my, if I do change anything on my config server git, right, if all these are pointing to config server, if I modify anything, right, so without restart, how can I get those changes? What should I do? Where is Anshman? What happened? He's full silent today.
Hi, where only?
Yeah, what should I do? How can I refresh the changes? For example, I do modify it. So
Actuator.
I do, yeah, git.add, git.commit. Then I say give some message. Then what should I do? I should do git actuator, right? So git actuator refresh. How to practice, then only you will remember these things. Okay, actuator refresh. But is this fully addressing the problem? Right, actuator dot refresh. What should I do? I should refresh each and every instance. For example, if you are running 20 instances, 30 instances, you have to go to each instance and refresh, right? Yes, no. So we have not fully addressed, right? We have, I mean, we didn't fully address this centralized configuration issue. So what should we do? We should identify a solution, right? For example, if 20 instances are running, I don't do 20 refreshes, only one refresh we are going to do. Automatically, all the instances should get, right? Automatically, all the instances should get, okay, reflected with the latest changes. So the solution for this issue is called Spring Cloud Bus. Okay, if you go to Spring Cloud documentation, so there is a dedicated project available for this problem. Okay, that project name is Spring Cloud Bus. Okay, here it is. Okay, so Spring Cloud Bus is solution for if you are running multiple instances and you don't want to refresh, just one refresh you want to get it updated. So we have to use Spring Cloud. Okay, Spring Cloud Bus. Mostly it is configuration. You don't write any code. It's mostly like configuration. So what we need to do, it is just a matter of adding one annotation and adding few dependencies. Okay, we will add those dependencies and we will do those changes. But we need one software called RabbitMQ install. Okay, so this Spring Bus, right? So this Cloud Bus is going to use RabbitMQ internally. So we need to install RabbitMQ. So why I'm installing all of a sudden Docker, I'm going to run the RabbitMQ as a Docker image, Docker container, and all these applications are going to point to that RabbitMQ, including clouds config server, right? Including config server. So if is there any change happens, so just refreshing, right? Refreshing any one of the client, right? Any one of the instance. it can be instance 1, instance 2, instance 3. All these are pointing to RabbitMQ. Automatically, the remaining instances also will be refreshed, right? You don't need to go to each instance level and refresh it. So I wanted to install RabbitMQ. I don't want to install it as a standalone application. I wanted to run it as a Docker container. So that's why I installed Docker. I just want you to show with the WSL2 with Linux, but fortunately due to my space issues, I'm not able to do it. Okay, but still I will show as a Docker from Windows, right? So Docker container from Windows. So let's spend a few minutes to understand how the things are going to be worked in the Docker. So in the Docker, the things are going to be worked like images and containers. Images are containers. So what you have to do with respect to Docker, okay, first you need to install Docker for sure. Docker is a software which is going to, right, take care about running images and containers. So it's something like this, okay. If you're starting from the scratch, anything, so you have to write a Docker file. So the name of the file itself is a Docker file. And here you say like what exactly you want. So you can think the Docker file is like a .java file. Okay, so what do you do in the .java file? What exactly that class has to be done? You will write it. Yes. So what exactly that Docker, I mean that image or container has to be done, we will specify in the Docker file. So we will build an image from this Docker file. Okay, we will build an image from this Docker file. So you can compare that image like your .class file in Java. Yes. Okay. So how many instances you can create for one .class file? N number of. So that runtime object you can think like a container, right? So container. So this container is like an object for that .class file. Okay. So this is what we need to do. So, but anyway, RabbitMQ, we don't start from the scratch, right? We need RabbitMQ, but we don't start from the scratch. We will download already created one and we will run it. So we don't have this step like writing the class file. It is just something like you are using some third-party library, right? So you are using some third-party library. So it's already written by somebody. So we are going to download it. So we don't do this step. We do this step, right? So we do execute downloading the image and running image and creating the container. So we actually pointing to container, not to image, right? It's a .class file. It doesn't have anything. So this .class file is going to be, you have to create an object, then only, I mean, like the same way you have to create the container. Container is the actual VM, right? Actual virtual thing which executes at runtime. Okay. And for one image, you can create a number of containers. So here is the image name. Okay. So RabbitMQ management is a image name. Okay. So for RabbitMQ, the image name is this. So to download this image into our local, we have to execute Docker pull. Okay, Docker pull and the image whatever you wanted to download, right? The image whatever you wanted to download. Yes. So by using this command, we will download this, right? We will download this image into our local system. So let's execute this command. So this command will check whether already this is downloaded or not. I already downloaded, so it won't download it again. So but it will say like it's already been there, right? So it's already available in my local machine. So it says that it has already been there, so it won't download, right? Image is up to date for RabbitMQ. For this in my local. So where are that information is storing? Go to Docker settings. Okay, go to Docker settings. You see there is one place where all the details are going to be stored. So go to general section, scroll down, not general resources, scroll down. You see here is the place where all the images are going to be. So, and you can also see what is the configuration right now. When I start my Docker, I'm going to assign 2 CPUs, right? 2 cores. Actually, my CPU has 4 cores, so but still I can give 2 cores to my Docker, and I'm giving 2 GB RAM, right? 2 GB memory. If it is causing that, it can max go to up to 1 GB more, 1 more GB, and I'm giving some disk local disk space, right? So it's used till now up to 712 MB, right? So 712 MB. Yes. So that's how the Docker configuration is going to be by default given in Windows when you just run Docker desktop. Yes, and here is the place where all the images are going to be stored in my local, right? Just like our Maven repository, right? So like Maven repository. So if it is there, it won't download it. If it is not there, it will be downloaded. Yes. So once the Docker image is downloaded, we will run Docker command, like we will create container from the Docker image by using Docker run command. So it's going to be Docker run and image name you need to give. Okay. So but before that, we need to learn one small concept called okay. So I think I already told you. So Docker is nothing but each container, it behaves like it itself is like a emission, right? So when I run that Docker container, it thinks like the Docker container itself is a emission, right? So it's a system. So when you are running this RabbitMQ or else any other software, right? For example, some HTTP simple web server, if you are running on that container, okay, so it's going to run on some port, of course, right? It's going to run on some port. But when you are trying to access this from your laptop, like outside of this container, you cannot access it by defaultly, right? So by defaultly, you cannot access it. So if you would like to access it from outside, you need to execute, right, a run command with one parameter called -p, right, port binding. And for example, if you are running HTTP server, right, a HTTP web server, like simple NGX web server, and you want to access it on port number 8080, then you should say, right, the first port number is outside Windows port number, and second port number is a Docker container port number. So 80 is a port number where the HTTP web server is running on container. So if I'm trying to access it from outside 8080, so you should do this port binding. Without doing port binding, you cannot be able to access, right? Without doing port binding, you cannot be able to access it. So let's see one simple example, right? Let's see one demo for this port binding. Then later we will directly run our RabbitMQ with the port binding, and we can easily able to access it. But let's see what is this port binding, how it works. So to get an idea on that, we need to run nginx, simple nginx web server. So nginx Docker, which we need to download that nginx server, and we need to run it. It's a simple HTTP server. Okay, just a simple HTTP server. So so it's all commands. Okay, no installation, nothing. So if you run nginx server without port, right, without port command, so what will happen? You cannot be able to access it, right? Without port command, if you are trying to access, right? So you cannot be access it. So I think I need a different command. Um, okay. Let me check. Do I have that command handy? I think it's not available. Okay, we need to give port p command is mandatory. So let's try this out, right? Let's try this out. So
I think below one, right?
no, no.
Exposing the external port.
I just want you to show first issue, then port.
Yeah.
First issue, then the solution. So if I run this, so we cannot be able to access it from outside, even though the Docker container is running and it has nginx server is running on it. Okay, running on it. So I'm not able to run it. So some security problems. So what I will do, I mean, it is expecting to log in into the Docker, so I don't want to log in into the Docker. So I will use another image of nginx. So I'll go to Google and say HTTP web server, simple web server. I just want you to show you. Right? So as a demo, so HTTP web server, right? So web server Docker, yeah, Docker HTTP web server. I don't think so. No, this is some complicated. These people try to make it complicated. So HTTP, okay, or else Docker nginx web server example. It's a simple web server, right? So yeah, so this guy explains in clear way. I will use this guy's example. Okay, we will show without port and with port. We'll try to execute the same. Right. So here is the go. Okay, here we go. We can run this, and now we are going to get some nginx server is running. So for this, we don't need to log in. Okay, it won't ask us, it won't expect us to log in. So the Docker, right, nginx server is running, but we didn't do the port, right? So port binding. If you try to access that nginx server, which is running in the background, like HTTP localhost 8080, so you don't see any output, right? So you don't see port binding. It's already running, I believe. Let me do one thing. Let me stop that existing running one. Docker ps command we used to see, right? Already it's running. So let me stop that, right? So let me stop that part. So Docker stop. We need to give that image ID, container ID. Okay, so container ID, paste it. So let's stop the Docker, clear everything, and say Docker container run my nginx. I think it's already have that name. Name my nginx is already there. So let's remove that container, right? So ps-a. So you will get that instance, right? So instance name my nginx is already there. It cannot create an with the same name. So let's delete those IDs, right? So Docker rm remove containers. So let's give the container IDs. So we are completely removing it. So if I do Docker ps-a, you don't see nothing is there. Everything is clear now. Okay. So let's try to run it out. Docker my nginx port. Let's see how it is running, whether the output, the port is binded to outside or not. So we need to execute docker-ps command. You see, so from outside we cannot be able to access it by using 8080, right? So the port is not binded outside. So if I'm trying to execute localhost 8080, this time nothing will be printed, right? So we didn't do the port binding. So even though it is running, even though that nginx server is running, we are not able to access it. You try it by using 8080 or 80, so you still cannot be able to access it, right? 8080 or 80 thing, so you cannot be able to access it. So what we have to do, so to access this nginx server which is running in the background from our local machine, we need to do the port binding. So I will do this thing, docker remove forcefully this container, right? So let's remove this container forcefully. So which is running, I'm going to delete it, forceful delete, it's deleted. Let's do docker ps-a, nothing is there, everything is clear. So what I will do, I will try to execute above command, right? So I will try to execute above command using port, right? So port binding. So I wanted to access this from outside 8080, right? So which is running on local, right? Container is running, I mean, inside the Docker container, it's going to run on 80. So I'm planning to access it from outside by using 8080. So now just a different command. Now when I do localhost 8080, I'm able to access that ng server, right? I'm able to access that nginx server. So let's execute this command. So let the container be created. If I do docker ps, it shows from outside how you want to access, right? From outside you can access it by using 8080. You come back and do it 8080. Now you are able to access the nginx server. So if you want to access whatever which is running inside container from outside, you have to do the port binding. If you want to access anything which is running inside from outside, right, from our Windows machine, if you would like to access it, then you should use port binding -p, right? So then only you can able to access it. So there is no exception for our RabbitMQ also. So we should also run it by using -p, right? So -p port binding will help us to access the resources which are there inside Docker container. So what we will do, okay, let the nginx will be run, so that let it run. So I'm going to run RabbitMQ with the port binding, right? So I'm going to run RabbitMQ with the port binding. So now in my local, RabbitMQ is running as a, right, in my local, RabbitMQ is running as a Docker container. So if I do docker ps, there are two containers are running. One is Docker RabbitMQ and another one is nginx server, right? So one is Docker, RabbitMQ, and another one is nginx server, right? Yes. So this is how we are going to run RabbitMQ on the local machine as a Docker container. So now let's come back to our old example. Oh my God, I lost that image. Okay, so I told, right? So yeah, so from our microservices, right, we will be pointing to that RabbitMQ, right? We will be pointing to the RabbitMQ, and this RabbitMQ is again is going to be pointed by cloud config server also, right? So this assume that this is your cloud config server, right? This is your config server, and this is your RabbitMQ, and here is your service instances, right? Okay, so this is what we will do it now. Okay, so one good thing with the cloud bus, okay, one good thing with the cloud bus, not only with cloud bus, do you remember, I mean, do you I mean, are you able to get this? So whenever we are working on Eureka, what did we do exactly when our services wants to be connected to Eureka? Did we do any configuration if the Eureka is running on default port 8761?
Change.
No, right? It is just a matter of adding the dependency,
Dependency.
pom.xml
Yes.
change. That's
Yes.
it. So the same way, if your RabbitMQ is running on port 5761 or 2, let's see what is the default port, 5762. If your RabbitMQ is running on port 5762, you no need to do any extra configuration. Just it is just a matter of adding a dependency, right? It is just a matter of adding a dependency, that is AMQP starter, right? AMQP starter, you need to put it on the class path. It will automatically connect, right? So it will automatically connect it to the, okay, it will automatically connect it to the RabbitMQ, which is running on the local machine, port 5762, port 5762. It is just a matter of adding the dependency. So when you need to add the dependency, you need to do the configuration, you know, if the RabbitMQ is not running on the port 5762, if the RabbitMQ is not running on the port number 5762, I will show that configuration also. Anyway, just if you are running on default and local machine, so we don't need to do any extra configuration. That's what I want to highlight, right? So let me open my Eclipse. Oh, now I not open it. Today my system will be too slow because I did install so many things yesterday. I was I'm really facing so many issues after update. I need to quickly format my machine. So once we are done with all this training, I'm planning to do it because I don't want to uh, scrap in between, right? If I format, all my softwares will be gone, which are there in my C drive. So I'm running with the same slowness itself. So today we will see so much slowness in my machine. Okay, so be very careful with that when you're updating your Windows.
You updated to Windows 10 new version, huh?
Yes, 1909.
Oh, no.
But it is not pure latest. The latest is something like 2004 or something. Okay, so that is not latest. So 1909 is a version number which released on last year October. Okay, 2009 October they released this. 2004 I think they released on November. May recently they released one more version, I think 2009 or something. That's 2020 available. 2020 something they released. Okay, so the minimum version we needed to run a Docker with the WSL2 is a 2004. Okay, I reached here. Actually, I was something like some 1800 or 15, not 1800,
Oh
1300
my gosh.
something. So from there I reached it to 1900. Then I'm out of space.
No, even in office laptops also, right? They did some changes. Like company laptops also, their images is changes.
They don't do it. I don't think so. If you ask, I want a WSL reinstall OS means not
They
sure how.
do. Okay. Might be something.
Yeah, we need to check with that team, LDS team. Uh, but not sure exactly because we don't know, right? So it's like a bulk, they take it, and how they process it, we don't. At least in local, we have some control. We can install if you want. Okay, so now yeah, let's go to the cloud config server. Okay, cloud config server, and add the dependency, right? So the dependency is AMQ the AMQP starter, it is just a matter of adding the dependency in the pom.xml file. It will be automatically connected to that. It will automatically connected to the RabbitMQ, which is running on my local port 75762. Okay, so this dependency we need to add. So let's quickly add the dependency. So let's go to this. Okay. Okay, so we need to add this dependency in dependencies section. Okay, so in dependencies section we need to add this okay, bus AMQP dependency, starter bus AMQP. Yes, so let's try to simple change. It is taking too much time. Yeah, now let's go to mobile service also, right? So there we are configured cloud config server, right? We are loading details from cloud config server. So go there and just add this dependency. Okay, add this dependency. We thought to add actuator in the parent, right? So where did we add? We added in the, yes, so it's better to add it in the parent. So because this is commonly required across all, right, all microservices. Okay, that's fine. So now let's come back and okay, this is the first step you have to do. So install the RabbitMQ, right? Install the RabbitMQ, and then add the dependency in both config server and clients. If your RabbitMQ is not running on port 5762 and not running on local, then you need to do this setup, right? And by defaultly in the real time, username password is default username password, right? So it's not default username password. So you have to give that one. You need to talk to that guy who installed the software. You need to get that username and password. Okay, so these things we have to be very careful. Okay, but anyway, this is optional because right now on my machine, this RabbitMQ is running on port 5672. So we don't need to do any changes. Yes. But to enable the bus, we need to add these three, right? So these three in the application.properties file or bootstrap.properties file, right? So these three. So we need to enable bus refresh, right? So we need to enable bus refresh endpoint because we are going to do one refresh, right? So we need to enable bus refresh, that is bus refresh, and we need to disable the securities, right? So these two we need to do it. Disable security only for actuator, not for entire applications. Disabling security only for actuator endpoints. So let's go to client. So this has to be added in the client. Okay, so be very careful with that. So these details has to be added in the client. So just copy and paste it here, right? So we need to enable the bus, we need to enable bus refresh, we need to disable security for, right? So we need to disable security for management, right? So we need to disable security for actuator endpoints. Okay, I think so. This is not required, so we will remove this and try. If it is we are getting any issues, then we can disable that. Okay, so these are all the changes we need to do to get the one-time refreshment. Okay, so what I will do, we need to start multiple instances of mobile service, right? We need to start multiple instances. So instead of having this 1 2, it's better to change the name, right? To expose like port itself, right? So by looking into the name itself, we should be in a position to say this application is going to run on what port. So let's quickly change the names. So click on this edit pen icon so we can change the configuration. Yeah, so here is my name, right? So on what port it is running? It is running on 8091, right? So let's change it to 8090 and disable profile and all. So let it go to the default itself. So let's say the name in the name section, we go -8090. So just by looking into that name, we can understand, right? So by looking into that name, we can say it's running on port 8090. So let's quickly change the remaining names also. By looking into that name, we should be in a position to say where it is running. So let's change this to 8091. So let's go ahead and do 8091. So this is going to be your 8091 and save, apply, close, right? Apply and close. So it's going to be run on 809. So let's change the last one. Right, so 8092, right? So what is the next available thing is 8092. So let's change the name also to 8092. So just by looking into that name itself, you can understand on what port that Spring Boot application is. And let's apply and close. So now what I will do, I will start two instances and we will do just one refresh, right? Or else we will start three instances and one refresh is enough, right? One refresh is enough to fetch, to refresh all the dependents, right? So one time we will send refresh and all are going to be automatically refreshed. So before starting service application, we need to start discovery and config server, right? So we need to start discovery and config server. So let's click on start and I think okay, I missed that click, so I did it. So it will be taking a while to start the service discovery and config server. Okay, let them start it. Okay, it's almost done. It's almost done. Yeah. Usually it won't be taking this much time actually. So my space issue, C drive space issue, RAM consuming more. Right? So all those things are making to get this slow. Okay, right now I will start two instances of mobile service. Yes. So wait for a moment. It will be downloaded. Yes. Let's see. Let's go to the properties file and see what message we have. Right. So clear. So let's do cat microservices, sorry, mobile service dot properties. So the latest version we have is okay. We don't have any version mentioned, right? So we will add some version 2.0, right? We will add some version 2.0, and then we will, right? We will update it, right? So we will update it to, yeah, we will do one refresh and see whether all these things are working fine or not. So let's go to services are running, they are connected, right? So it's freshly started just now, right? So those services are freshly started just now, so they will have the latest message, right? So they will have the latest message. Once the services are started, we will test them. Okay, we will test them from two different places. So one from browser and one from Postman. We will send two different requests and see what is the message we are printing. We will update the message and see how we gonna to like one refresh. Both instances are going to take the test, right? So how it's going to happen, we will see that part. Okay. Okay, so two instances are up and running, right? Two instances are up and running. So let's go to browser, right? So let's go to let's come here and send one request. So it's going to be come on, all right. So my system is behaving something differently after that installation. OS update. So I'm not sure. It may take 1 or 2 days time to digest the new libraries and all. Not sure. Let's see.
This not discharge, right? It will take 2 days to recover.
Yeah.
Windows
Okay.
having this issue. If you update and all, right, sometimes it will take. Let's start.
Mm.
Most of the this people, right, like who are like taking the online classes and all, like mostly they will use Mac. That is the reason because of the
Yeah. Most
speed
of the people who teach trainers will take use.
trainers will use Mac only. Yeah, or else like big companies like who will invest good, right? Like e-commerce and all, they never use Windows.
We are poor software developers.
That is what I'm saying. That is the e-commerce guys. They will never even like I know, right? People, some of my friends, they directly got Mac only in that
Yeah, they're in their companies. They will give Mac. Yes.
because they don't want all this lagging issues and all.
Yeah.
And
So we
back,
need a username password, right? So let's take it from here. No, I'm planning to install SSD. Like that may cost around
that
5,000 rupees.
that is also
Yeah.
helpful.
So I ordered it. Not sure when it will come. I don't know. Maybe it is downloading from China and all. Not sure. So it may take some time to. Yeah, it may take some time to. Uh, oh, where is the security? Yeah, here it is. Right? Mobile user. Yeah. So it may take some time to. I ordered it. Maybe next 1 or 2 weeks I will get it. So later I may.
Now it's very difficult. It's taking a
Yeah.
lot of time for electronic gadgets
Yeah.
because of this China issue and all.
Yeah. So mobiles user, send it and look at the console. Yeah. The message what we're gonna print it, it's the latest, right? Just now we connected to the right, so we didn't update it. So where is the message? We are not printing message. God. Go to controller and see whether we are printing the message or not. Client server service and src main java controller. Come on, come on. So we are printing message, and where it print? Somewhere it would have prints. No, let's go to mobile service console and see where we print the message. Oh, get all mobiles I have to do, not mobile by ID, right? So we are printing and get all mobiles. So let's remove this one, get all mobiles. So the message will be printed on the console. Okay, so the message is going to this, right? So welcome to Spring Cloud config server. Yes, we will update that, but before that, let's go to browser and send the same request, right? So let's send the same request and see we are from 8092. So two instances are running. One is on 8091 and another one is on 8092. So we hit 8091, we got the message printed. Let's hit 8092 and let's expect the same message printed, right? So 8092. So it's going to ask the username and password. We need to enter the username and password. So whatever we entered on the post method. So let's give that is it. Those details on the browser. So yes, security. Let's give those details and you'll see you get that message printed and on the console. It's the same message, right? So 8092 same message, right? 8092 same message. Yeah, here it is 8092 same message. 8091 also same message printed. Yes. So now let's go ahead and change that, right? Let's go ahead and edit that message. So let's do vi.mobileservice.properties. Okay, so I will, let's click I to edit this file, right? All these are Linux commands. So I will say version 2.0, right? So 2.0 and save this file. Okay, come back and every time you modify the git repository, you need to add the changes and you need to commit the changes, right? So git add and git commit. So yeah, so this is what is a mandatory thing. So let's say give the message as version 2.0, right? So version 2.0. So now let's go back. Okay, first what we will do, we will see the issue, right? So we will use a spring refresh, right? Spring refresh for 8091. So spring actuator refresh is not the solution, right? So yesterday we tried that already. So do you want me to show that or do you want me to directly show the bus? So two things we have. So one is actuator refresh. In the last session we discussed, right? So
But it worked, right, Sunil?
it works for a particular instance. It won't work for both instances.
Yeah, that did work. Yes.
So now, so the solution for that issue is bus refresh. If you do bus refresh, both instances will be updated. So this is like yeah, service level. Okay, so this is like service level, and the below one is like global. Just one service you update, you see all the changes, right? All the instances will get the latest value. So let's go to console. right? So I mean, it won't be enabled by default, right? Bus refresh won't be enabled by default. So you need to add these two commands, right? Spring Cloud Bus enabled, Spring Cloud Bus refresh enabled. So now
Okay.
let's go to 8091. Yeah, you need to install, you need to run this from any one of the instance, right? 8091, and say MSK actuator bus refresh post request, and you need to give the security also. Let's send the request, right? So it's going to automatically refresh all the instances, right? All the instances. So let's send this request. You see automatically all those instances are going to reload the configs, right? You see 8091 will reload, 8092 will reload, right? Including config server also will get refreshed, right? So all are connected to RabbitMQ. So it's going to do fire one event on the RabbitMQ, so that all the clients will be, see, 8091 and 8092, it all are refreshed. So if I try to access, I will get the latest. See, I just modified, right? I just like I triggered only one, right? I triggered only one refresh, not two. It's just only one refresh I triggered. So now let's go and access, right? So 8091 and 8090, both 8091 and 8092. It's just one refresh will take care about, right? Refreshing all configs in all instances, right? Version 2.0. 8092 we got version 2.0. Let's try to access 8091 also. You see version 2.0 is printed, right? Yes. So not only two instances, if you have 20, 40, 50 instances also, no problem. You don't need to go to each instance level. Just one bus refresh can take care about refreshing the configuration for all microservices, right? So it is just a simple thing, right? So you need to install RabbitMQ and you need to add a dependency. If RabbitMQ is running, so here we need to add an client side, server side we need to add, and the client side also we need to add, right? So both has to be connected, right? So both has to be connected, right? So both has to be connected into AMQP, right? So RabbitMQ. So when you just send one refresh, bus refresh, right? So RabbitMQ will trigger an event to refresh all the remaining cloud config server, and including cloud config server and clients. So all the latest are going to be reloaded, right? All the latest are going to be reloaded. So when you are trying to provide a solution for centralized configuration, which is combination of both, what is the first one? We are here, right? Yeah. So if you are trying to do a centralized configuration, so you need to do two things. One is config server, and second thing is cloud bus, right? There are two projects are there. If you go to Spring Cloud official documentation also, you see there are two projects will be there. One is the cloud config and another one is the cloud bus. So here is the cloud bus, and if you scroll down somewhere you see cloud config. So combination of these two projects will address, right, centralized configuration issue on the microservices architecture. Okay. So this is what is the solution for centralized configuration. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So let's go to the next issue. Okay. Any questions on this? You have to do hands-on, then you get some doubts.
Yeah, that is what.
So next problem is distributed tracing. Okay, distributed tracing. So what is distributed tracing? Why we need to do, right? So why we need to do? It's a small issue. It's a small thing. We need to understand. Okay, so we need to understand. So configuration wise, it's pretty easy. It is just a matter of adding two dependencies. That's it. It is just a matter of adding two dependencies. That's it. Okay. So for example, I will try to correlate distributed tracing in our microservices, whatever we wrote. Okay. So here you wrote a client, right? So mobile service client. So client is making internally calls to what? To what?
Mobile service, country service, and
Exactly.
Whatever
So
access service.
yes,
Access service.
exactly, right? So if you, for example, you send some request and it took some 3 seconds or 4 seconds. Actual time it's supposed to take 2 seconds, but it is taking 5 seconds. So we gave ETA, like for example, your response will be given in 2 seconds, but there are some timeouts, and we are getting response in 5 seconds, right? So we need to debug and see where exactly the issue is coming, right? We need to debug and see. So what you do, if it is a monolithic application, it's pretty easy because everything is going to be in one place, so you can easily debug it. But in coming to microservices, so this is different JVM, mobile service is different JVM, country service is different JVM, then you don't have any centralized control, right? So you don't have any centralized control to trace, right? So this distributed system, right? So tracing the distributed system is called distributed tracing. So how you are going to do that? It's a pretty easy. Okay, we need to just, it is just a matter of adding few dependencies. Okay, so the process of tracing the distributed system is called distributed tracing. Okay, Spring provides one option called Spring Cloud Sleuth or Sleuth. Okay, so here is just how you pronounce it. So I call it as Spring Cloud Sleuth. So this Spring Cloud Sleuth is the solution for distributed tracing. Distributed tracing, and you can, I mean, it won't work individually. It needs some support from, okay, from, I will show you what are all this. This document is not available. Let's go to a different version, 2.2.3. Okay, Spring Cloud Sleuth. Yes. So when I scroll down, so this is how it looks like. Okay. So you send request, you got the response. So each microservice level, one trace ID and span ID is going to be added, and it's add some message, send the requests, get the response like that. So each microservice level, you see different trace IDs, right? So here it is trace ID X and trace ID span ID A. So when you go to the next level, you see trace ID, right? The trace ID X, but the span ID is B, right? Span ID is B. When it goes to the next service, it says that trace ID is X, but the span ID is D, right? So in one trace ID, you will get multiple span IDs which are relevant to that corresponding flow. Okay. Yes, you don't, I mean, it is just the image you are understanding, so you might feel difficulty, but when I run one example, you feel really, you can easily understand. Okay, you can easily understand, but you should read a little bit about what is trace ID and what is span ID to get better idea how this distributing tracing is going to work. Okay, so by default, the Spring Boot supports Zipkin. Okay, Zipkin is one of the third-party library which will help us to do the distributed tracing. Okay, Zipkin is one of the third-party library which can help us to do the distributed tracing. But anyway, in the real time, mostly people don't use Zipkin. They do use New Relic. Okay, they do use New Relic. So New Relic is a kind of nice software which can help us to trace, right, to monitor the production services, right? To monitor the production services. So you, like the people who already watched Shankar's iMovie, right? So I think at least Vijay would have watched, or else, right?
No, it's there everywhere.
Yeah, Shankar's iMovie, right? So Zipkin, and what is Zipkin and what is New Relic, you know? So Zipkin is just a distributed tracing. It doesn't talk anything about other than distributed tracing, but New Relic is aduk mele, right? More than Zipkin. So it is in Telugu it's antak minchi, right? So more than Tamil it's aduk mele. So it's already have Zipkin. So it's Zipkin plus Drop Wizard plus Micrometer plus Open telemetry, right? So it's going to have everything. So that's why people prefer using New Relic, but it is not for free of cost. By okay, we need to buy, we need to purchase. It's costly. It is not that much easy. You know, people mostly buy the APM, Application Platform Management. Okay, APM stands for Application Platform Management, which takes care about logging everything, right? Which takes care about logging everything. But for, like, guys, it's not for free of cost. So somewhere you see pricing, right? So pricing. So it is too costly. Okay, it is too costly. So but companies still take it, still invest money on it because like analysis, production analysis, very important, right? If anything goes wrong, you cannot do it on the fly. So it's better to integrate this New Relic, and you get so many benefits when you are tracing your thing, right? So New Relic internally has Zipkin. New Relic internally has Zipkin. But if you would like to go with Zipkin, Zipkin is free of cost. You need to install Zipkin server and you need to run as a server. But New Relic is not like that. Okay, everyone has to come to the newrelic.com and they will give some user ID to you. So you need to log in with your user ID. So that is like a centralized login. Every request, it is Google or whatever it is, if they are using New Relic, they will come to newrelic.com site and they will be doing the things here. So there might be some chances like New Relic will be using your details, but anyway, there are some legal concerns will be there. So we don't need to think at that level. Okay, so if it is New Relic configuration, you go to newrelic.com, right? Newrelic.com and you see, right? You see that corresponding details, right? So you see your application specific details are logging there. So I'm not going to look into the New Relic because it is a price, right? So we have always preferred learning open sources. So we are going to learn only Zipkin. But as I already told, New Relic is right more than Zipkin, right? Right? So it's more than Zipkin. So it's already has Zipkin. You get more benefits than Zipkin. So we need to install Zipkin server, right? We need to install Zipkin server. So when we go to Spring Cloud, right? So Spring Boot already created one Zipkin starter, right? So Zipkin starter, so it is an executable jar file. You download it and run it. So you get this kind of UI. So first we need to start the Zipkin start server. Then we need to add two dependencies. One is the sleuth dependency, and the another one is Zipkin dependency. That's it. It is just a matter of adding dependencies. Automatically your requests are going to be traced, right? Your distributing tracing is going to be enabled for your application. It's going to be log each and every time, like each and every request and response processing time. So what we will do, we will enable the distributed tracing. We will come to know how much mobile service to process the response, how much country service to process the response, how much mobile accessory to process the response, right? It is just a matter of adding a simple dependency. That's it. We are not going to write any one line of code also. So I already downloaded that executable Zipkin server jar file. Here it is, right? So Zipkin server executable jar file. It is a Spring Boot application. You don't need to waste your time. Creating Zipkin server executable jar file, it is some time consuming process because you need to manage some dependencies. So it's better to download an existing Zipkin server and start with it, right? So let's go to that location and start the Zipkin server. So ls-lrt. So here we have the Zipkin server. So let's run as a Java command. So I didn't set the Java as a environment variable. So I need the Java command, right? So explicit Java command I need to run. So let me go to my program files and get the path of the Java. Go to C drive. Sorry, CU program files, right? Program files, not 86. Program files, Java, JDK, bin. Yes, let's take this part. And so there is a space we need to wrap inside double quotes. Right? Slash Java. Yes, -jar. It is an executable jar file. So we can use Java -jar command, right? Just like our Spring Boot application. So let's clear the console. Just to Java -jar Zipkin server -execute jar. So it will be our Zipkin server is going to be started in my local machine. In few seconds, the Zipkin server is going to start. Right? So it's up from Spring Boot, right? It's from Spring Boot. It's from officially from Spring. We can use this for free of cost. You don't need to pay 1 rupee, right? So if it is New Relic, it's not things not like that. So you need to minimum charge itself like some $15 or $20 per month. Okay, that too they will provide limited space. Zipkin server is started. So the default port for Zipkin server is 9411. So if your Zipkin server is running on 9144, you don't need to do any configuration. It's just a matter of adding the dependency 9411, right? So 9411, you just click enter. You see that how Eureka server console is like that. You see some Zipkin server console. So just now we started the server, right? So there are no traces are enabled, right? So there are no traces are enabled. So what we have to do, we have to, what is this lens here? I don't know. That's fine. So let it be like this. Okay. So now let's go to our client. Let's go to our client and add the dependencies, right? So let's go to client and add those two dependencies. Okay. If your Zipkin server is running on default port 9411, so you don't need to do any configuration. It is just a matter of adding. Okay. It is just a matter of adding two dependencies. So let's go to dependency section. So one dependency is sleuth starter and another dependency is a Zipkin starter. Okay, these two dependencies you need to, it's kind of magic you are going to see now. After adding these two dependencies, okay, I will start all microservices and I will send one request. Now I will show each microservice how much time it took to process, right? So let's come back and stop one of the mobile service. One is enough for us, right? So let's start the remaining microservices. Country, mobile accessory, client. So let's start all three. Okay, let's start all three. Now the real slowness will come into the picture. After starting all my microservices, that's it, it becomes dead slow. It will take a while to restart, right? So restarting 3 dash elements, Spring Boot dash elements, so it will take some time to. Oh God. Okay, so meanwhile, let me open this Postman. This also hang out after once once these all started, the Postman also becomes slow. Yeah, I have to install SSD at any point of cost. This like this, I cannot run. My God.
Hey, Max Sunil.
No man, I don't have that much money. Mac means it will cost 50 to 60,000. No, I don't buy the.
75.
If anything happens, they like small issue also they will charge. If you go and ask, monitor is gone, they will charge 35,000. You know, I lost my monitor, my whatever the laptop I'm using.
Oh,
It's
screen.
the screen is gone like few years back. I spent 3,500 or 4,000 to get that
No,
screen.
See, with Apple and Mac product, that is a problem. Maintenance is too high.
Too high. You know, I bought this laptop, whatever I'm using 6 years back. Till now, how much money I would have invested for maintenance? You know, it never crossed 10,000 till now. I installed 4 GB RAM extra and one-time screen gone. One-time screen gone, and when I bought it, I got it with a 4 GB RAM. I recently 2 years back I installed, like I upgraded to 8 GB RAM. Now right now my machine is having 8 GB RAM. So when I bought it, the cost is like around 35,000. After that, I spent for this whole 6 years, I spent only 10,000 as a total maintenance cost. If I am really interested to buy Mac, I don't buy Mac. I will buy some other laptop and I install Linux directly. I already have one system with Windows, right? I can buy a simple laptop, 4 GB RAM, and I can install Linux and directly I can use it. Because Mac also kind of Linux only, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, what is the problem? Client is not started. Let's go to console and see what is the exception coming. No such bean definition. Up, 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 up. Country web service client.
Sunil, I have one question. like in my company, like they are saying public API, private API, like
Public means outside people can access it. Like, for example, IRCTC APIs we have, right? So those are public APIs. Anyone can, right? But when you say this one, right? For example, um, uh, like any API which is inside your company, right? Applications, that is private. So public means outside people can access it. For example, RBI is exposing service, that is public API. HDFC and ICICI Bank exposing services, and you can think those are all like not public APIs, right? So they are like private APIs.
okay, yeah.
Just a second, there is some configuration issue. I know that I made it. I did this. This intentionally. I was doing some historic changes, some fail callback changes, and intentionally. One more changes I did it like this. Country service. I intentionally throwing some exception. I forget to revert those changes. Where is the controller? I wanted to uh, I wanted to throw some exception. So I wrote some code like like this. But today, and this is in the next session, I would like to cover. Yes. Let the country service up and running. Why this discovery is keep on throwing some kind of socket timeout? Okay, fine. Socket timeout, let it be. Now, client alone, we are getting this problem. Security. Let's see what is the change I did. So country is restarting. It's okay. So let me move this dashboard to here. So client form.xml file. Reflex, DevTools, Lombac, project, security, this Netflix, cloud config monitor. This is what is problem. Let's remember. We need Eureka, cloud rabbit also will not. Hey, where I copied those two then? Just now we copied two dependencies, no? Where I copied? Oh my god, one second.
In master client, Sunil.
Mobile client.
Mobile client.
We don't have Sleuth and Zipkin here. I copied somewhere else. One second. Let me check where I did copy. Did I copy it in um, service? No, not service. One second.
I think git dip you can
Which one?
git dip maybe.
Git, no. In form.xml file, we copied two dependencies, right? Oh, sorry. I copied the wrong dependencies. So not these two dependencies. You need to copy these dependencies. Zipkin and Sleuth.
Look,
Okay. So go to client, but okay, without Zipkin, let's start. Will it work or not? I made a couple of changes. I left in between. So somewhere I added histories. Let me check. Hmm, file sets. Hmm. So this is we will discuss in the future. Okay. Any one of the service is throwing some exception, like uh, like how can we handle that is what is the next section. So districts and all, I want to fully remove it. Let me check anywhere districts is there. So file districts, no. So let's check file circuit breaker. Circuit. Okay. So now let's start a mobile client and later we will add tracing. Okay. I was doing some changes for districts. Yeah, it started, right? Yes. So now what we will do, we will go to client and add those two dependencies, right? Let's add those two dependencies. One is Sleuth and another one is Zipkin. So make sure your Zipkin server is running on port 9411. So otherwise you need to do some more extra configuration, okay, in application properties. So let's save this. Okay, let's save and stop the service because we added new dependencies, right? So let's stop the service and start the service. Let's stop the service and start the service. It's better to start this discovery separately. It's keep on connect. It is keep on sending health. It is started. Let's start it after doing the changes. Let's start it. So now it will automatically connect it to the Zipkin server, which is running on my local, right, 9411 port. So once we send the request, you see how the tracing is going to be added automatically. So this is like pure lightweight actually. So whatever I'm showing, so we can customize this. So So is it up and running? Yes, mobile client is up and running. Let's click generate a new token. Right, so let's quickly generate a new token. Come on. Aha. So tomorrow what I will do, I will disable few concepts, right? So system becoming too much slow. I will stop cloud config server and I will stop this Zipkin and okay. So tomorrow when we are discussing about histories, right? So I will stop few of the things, like too many things which are running, right? So system becoming slow. So I'm actually, if I format it, then things will be smooth, but I cannot do it. So okay. So let's go ahead and do 8085, right? So let's take a new window. http://local, let's localhost mobile client /1 in the header section. So we need to send a token, right? Authorization token. So that's going to be uh, bearer space the actual token which is generated, right? Yes, I think I gave some space. Good. So let's go to top and click on body section. So click on send. Yeah. So we should get some response. Yeah, it will take some time. For first request, it takes more time, right? So no problem. Yeah, you got the response, right? So you got response from mobile port 8090. Let's go to Unzipkin and refresh. You see the magic. So there is one trace is going to be added to. What's up? Spring Cloud Sleuth, Spring Cloud Zipkin. Go to client console. Oh, okay. It failed to connect. It failed to connect. That is what is the problem. We will do one thing. We'll restart our application so that it will connect to the uh, Zipkin server. Yeah, now this time it connected, right? HTTP post. Yeah, this time it connected. You can see that in the console. So HTTP post control F9411, right? It connected to that Zipkin server. Yes. So what we will do? Yeah, it started. Let's go ahead and send the request. Okay, let's go back to Zipkin server and refresh. Okay. Uh,
Sorry, so in that Zipkin dashboard, right, all our services will come in the drop down.
Wherever you add a sleuth and a Zipkin dependency, those details will come. Yes.
Okay.
So we no need to enable in all the places, right? We no need to enable in all places. I think the mistake which we did is we need to enable actuator. Let me check the working course. Okay, so we need to enable actuator. That is what I think. That is what is the mistake I did. So let's go to yeah, microservices client. So go to pom.xml file. So dev tools microservices mobile service client. So I think microservices mobile service client. I think it's loading from Git table. Git microservices mobile service client. So code should be here. So sleuth Zipkin, sleuth Zipkin, and security reflex. So it is from parent, right? Yes, from parent. I added the actuator in the parent.
Parent, yes.
Yeah, so that's why it was working. Okay, so you see this actuator we have it. So this actuator is required. So let's come back and add it. Once you add the dependency, let's stop that client and it's stopped. Okay, it's building that workspace. Just let it complete the building. Okay, just go to boot dashboard and start the client. You see, last time also it is connected, but I think it internally use some actuator APIs to log the details. It started. let's send one more request. So you got request, you got response. Yes, so this is what is sleuth information, from where you are getting the response, right? So mobile client, and it goes to which client, which thing, right? So this is your trace ID and span ID, trace ID and span ID. So it goes to each service, right? It goes to each service and get the details. Let's go to Zipkin and see whether it's logging or not. God. Okay, I think I need to select, oh, okay. I need to select this mobile client from drop down. Yeah. Find traces. It will be available to you. Yeah. So see these many calls we sent. Sorry. Okay. So these many calls we sent. So the problem is I need to select a mobile client from this drop.
Sunil,
It is working fine.
yeah. But with this, what information we are getting it actually?
Yeah. I'm going to show 1 second. Let me click on
Okay.
this. Okay. Let me click on this. Yeah. So now you will come to know each service how much time it took. For example,
Okay.
total time took to process is 24 seconds. In the 24 seconds, 11 seconds went into, click on this. So the total 11 seconds took to process your mobiles, right? Mobiles, MSK mobiles one, right? Our main mobile service. So again, then 11 more seconds it took to get the response from country, right? And 8 seconds it took to get the response from
Fine then.
mobile
Okay.
client. Okay, so the total processing time is 24 seconds. In the 24 seconds, how much time each service took, right? So you can just click on the trace and you can come to know like how much depth it has and how much spans it has, right? So if you want to see everything, you just click on expand all. Okay.
Basically, just to do some kind of analysis, how
Yeah. For
which
example,
particular service taking much time.
yes. So that is what is distributed tracing, right? So when
Yes.
you see, like, for example, total 6 seconds it took, you just click on it, it
Where it is,
shows, shows create token, why it took 6 seconds, then go back, right? So it's going to log everything, right? It's going to log everything. So you just click on the next thing, and it took 5 seconds time. So each request how much time took, right? So you're not writing any code. You're not, without writing any code, you still get, right? You still get distributed tracing enabled. So we no need to enable distributed tracing for core services. This is for like mobile client kind of services, right? Where one service is calling multiple services. So you want to know each background service how much time they are taking, then that can be done by using Zipkin server with Sleuth, right? So this is inbuilt actually, but in the real time, most people don't use it. They go and take the license from the New Relic, because New Relic is much powerful than Zipkin. So Zipkin talks only about distributed tracing. It doesn't talk anything about, if for example, database side, if you're calling how much time the database time is taking, and you cannot generate reports, right? So you cannot generate reports under it. I mean, it is not that much customable. It is just a simple thing like in a backend services, how much time they are taking, and that is coming for free of cost. And you can just enable it on the fly, and you can disable it on the fly, right? Yes. So that's how we are going to use Spring Cloud Sleuth with Zipkin. Okay. So let me quickly open what else is pending. So I think only two things are pending according to my knowledge, right? So let's quickly review. So what are all the topics we learned in microservices architecture? I think we learned about config server, we learned about actuator, we learned about what else? So we
And
learned
this
about
thing,
actuator, config server, yes, Zool gateway,
Zool, yes.
Zool, and load balancing, client-side load balancing, service discovery, right? And today we learned about distributed
Distributed.
tracing with Cloud Sleuth and Zipkin. So whatever is I mentioned, I'm just showing. Okay. So next, Cloud Bus also we understood, right? So it's a combination of both, right? So Spring Cloud config server plus Cloud Bus, like they work together. Yes. So two last topics are pending. One is the historics. When there is any service goes down, how we want to handle it. how you're going to handle it, and how can you do a centralized logging, right? How can you do a centralized logging?
So Sunil, it is like disaster management also, right? Like DM activities which we will
No,
do.
that
No,
that
yeah, fault tolerance I'm saying. You showed, right?
no,
Fault
that
tolerance.
is not at service level. That is like cloud deployment level. You do multi region deployments in cloud. So one region is going down, then another.
Yeah, yeah. No, yes, that's what I'm saying. So in our like in real time, right? We will also do some kind of the disaster recovery things, right? This, so it is similar to that only, right?
No, it
Like,
is like
like
service
suppose,
level.
yeah,
Service level.
okay. So
That
suppose one server is gone down. Suppose we are running 8 servers, and that main server has gone down. So you have to move your services to the your recovery server. So it is like something like that only, is it?
okay. Fault tolerance. You are talking about fault tolerance. It is in general. Like, and when you talk about servers, it is for monolithic applications. So yes,
Like,
that concept
like,
we have that challenge in microservices also, and that is common challenge. How we gonna address that challenge in
in our
micro?
old system, right? Like how we have, that our old system that they will do DR exercise and all. So,
So yeah, that is like monolithic applications. The same kind of issue will come. Like any one of the microservices going down, then how can you handle that situation? That we will discuss tomorrow. Fault tolerance with Asterix, and like two last sessions, guys, tomorrow, and one weekend session. I can close this. Okay, so try. So I will push this code maybe tomorrow. You can practice and let me know if you have any doubts on this. Okay.
okay.
Yeah. Thank you all. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, Sunil. Bye.
Thank you.